Childress Racing was shocked by Tyler Reddick's announcement of him going to 2311 Racing in 2024. Kyle Larson may not race in 2023 Chili Bowl Nationals, and Aric Almirola is potentially maybe looking at reconsidering retiring from the NASCAR Cup Series. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start our paint schemes in sponsorship news first. Let's jump into those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2022 Minute/Kroger scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. This paint scheme looks pretty solid in my opinion. This is not the best JTG scheme I've seen, but I think it looks pretty solid, and hopefully Ricky Stenhouse Jr. can have a good run in this car this weekend at New Hampshire. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Bubba Wallace's 2022 DraftKings scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. I absolutely love this paint scheme. They did a really awesome job on it. I think 2311 Racing's done a really good job on their paint schemes. If you look at the C post, NBA 2K is actually sponsoring the car, which I think is really cool. It looks awesome. Excited to see on the racetrack this weekend at New Hampshire. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Howie DeSavino III's 2022 Clear Crypto scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. Solid paint scheme in my opinion. I love the green and the white. I think it looks pretty good. Excited to see Howie DeSavino is back on the track this weekend at New Hampshire. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Mason Massey's 2022 Richmar Flores scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. Solid paint scheme, in my opinion. Richard Flores has had some really awesome looking paint schemes on their cars. This one's no obsession. I think it looks solid, and I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend here at New Hampshire. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Daniel Suarez's 2022 Slam scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. Absolutely love this paint scheme. I love the Slam car a lot. This is the first time I think Slam has sponsored Daniel Suarez. I think Trackhouse and Kyle Sachs have done an incredible job this year. It looks amazing. Looks incredible. They did a great job, and I'm excited to see on the racetrack this weekend here at New Hampshire. Next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Sage Karam's 2022 CRC brake cleaning scheme that I believe we're going to see next weekend at Pocono. Honestly, I think it looks pretty good. There's some things I'm not a big fan of on this car, but I think it looks pretty solid, and hopefully Sage Karam have a good run in this car this weekend at, not this weekend, but next weekend at Pocono. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is BJ McLeod's 2022 My Mochi ice cream scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. Good paint scheme, in my opinion. Not great, but good paint scheme, in my opinion. I believe it's the first time My Mochi is sponsoring him, so great to see that Mochi is sponsoring BJ McLeod. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kurt Busch's 2022 Sirius XM scheme that we're going to see this weekend at New Hampshire. I absolutely love this paint scheme. The colors work very perfectly on the car. The blue and I think it's blue, like a darker blue and a black, which I think looks absolutely incredible. Kurt Busch in 2011 had some good schemes this year. This one's no exception. It looks awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at New Hampshire. And the final paint scheme we are taking a look at is Ryan Ellis's 2022 Keen Parts Corvette parts scheme that we're going to see in a couple weekends at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Solid paint scheme, in my opinion. Not fantastic. I think it's very solid, and I think it's awesome to see that we're going to see Ryan Ellis back in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Indianapolis Road Course. I think it looks really solid, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the New Hampshire purses for this weekend. So, of course, Bob Pogger's always every single week shows the release of the purses of how much it's going to be. So, for the Cup Series, it's going to be $7,102,088. For the Xfinity Series, it's going to be $1,175,214. For the Cup Series, of course, includes all the charter teams, which is the majority of the money. You don't usually see the uncharted teams, which, again, this weekend there's no uncharted teams, so that's why the purse may be a little bit down than normal. But that's the purses for this weekend, heading into the NASCAR Cup Series race and Xfinity Series race this weekend at New Hampshire. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about Kyle Larson. We're going to have a lot of Kyle Larson news to talk about today. But the first thing, Kyle Larson won the World of Outlaws race at Attica Park for the Brad Doty Classic and won quite a bit of money, which will come into a future portion of this video. Kyle Larson won his third World of Outlaws race of this year. He's been winning a lot this year. Not as much as he won last year, but Kyle Larson has been winning a lot of dirt races, and hopefully this will carry a lot of momentum. It seems like his luck is really starting to turn the corner and really starting to turn around. Great to see Kyle Larson go out there win. I think he had to hold off a hard-charging Donnie Schatz to win, and Kyle Larson really gave gave some really good thoughts on Donnie's shots and how he raced. So really great to see, and congratulations to Kyle Larson on winning that race. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about William Byron. On the same night that Kyle Larson won the Brad Doty Classic, William Byron went on to win the 2022 Slinger Nationals. I believe this is the sixth time that William Byron has won a late model race this year with the Donnie Wilson organization. I believe this is also the first time that he has won the Slinger Nationals. You all can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But William Byron, I think, had to hold off some really hard charging cars like Derek Thorne. Matt Kenseth got a top 5 in the race. Of course, he competed in this event. And there were other really talented and great drivers running this event. But massive congratulations to William Byron on winning the 2022 Slinger Nationals. He's a great driver, knows how to get it done, and excited to see that he won the Slinger Nationals. Congratulations to him on that. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kaden Honeycutt. As it was announced yesterday that Kaden Honeycutt is going to drive the 30 for On Point Motorsports next weekend at Pocono. I believe this will be Kaden's second or third start of the year. Originally, he was supposed to drive a couple races for Glory to God Racing. It seems like things have not gone wrong. He's actually supposed to run 3 races with this team. He'll be looking to get some experience, and hopefully we'll be looking to have a good run. I don't know what happened to Tate Fogelman. It's unclear what car he'll be racing or truck he'll be racing the rest of the year. But I'm hoping Kaden can have a good run. I think ultimately the goal is to try to get a top 20 and really impress in this car. Awesome to Kaden Honeycutt's getting back behind the wheel, and good luck to him next weekend at Pocono. Hopefully he does have a very strong run. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Nick Sanchez. As Nick Sanchez revealed on social media yesterday that he will not continue racing with Bijou Motorsports this season, as he has been presented an opportunity. Nick Sanchez made 2 NASCAR Xfinity Series starts so far this year for Bijou Motorsports and was scheduled to run around 4 or 5 more races this year, including, I believe, originally this weekend at New Hampshire. It's a shame, but he's also competing full-time for Rev Racing in the IndyCar, and not IndyCar, the ARCA Championship, and currently is second in points and barely behind his teammate Roger Croft in the championship. I wonder what opportunities he's got. Maybe he's getting an opportunity with a team like Alpha Prime Racing. Maybe somehow he's got an opportunity with Junior Motorsports. Who really knows at this point. But if he's getting presented a good opportunity, I really cannot blame him for trying to take an opportunity to race in another team, especially if the team is better. I think it really is a much better move. I think this is really, really awesome. Very, very exciting for sure that whatever opportunity he's got. It's a shame he can't finish this year with Bijou Motorsports, but it is what it is. He's probably trying to focus, of course, on winning the ARCA Championship, trying to beat his teammate Roger in the championship, and just hoping that Sammy Smith does not go on a tear and win the championship right there. Good luck to him in whatever opportunity he has, and good to see that he's got another opportunity coming up here in the future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Frankie Muniz. Now, Frankie Muniz was on Sirius 7 NASCAR radio, and basically he said he is talking to a bunch of teams in the racing world about making starts in ARCA, trucks, and the NASCAR Xfinity Series, about making starts in 2022 and also in 2023 as well. I do believe that Frankie Muniz is supposed to make an ARCA West start later this year at Phoenix and has been competing in the late models. Now, Frankie Muniz, I think it's cool that he's looking, of course, he's from shows like Malcolm in the Middle, basically movies like Agent Cody Banks, a legendary actor from the early 2000s and the mid-2000s as well. Frankie, of course, will be looking to make some starts in those series respectively. I'm really intrigued to see where he's going to race and what type of racing. Now, when it comes to trucks and Xfinity, I think he just focused on super speedways. I think going into ARCA and racing, there's actually not a bad move. I think racing full-time in ARCA would be really, really awesome, whether it's for another driver or for another team, because he did actually do an ARCA test with, I can't remember, I think it was the 12th team, the Fast Track Racing Organization. I think he did a test for them. So it is cool that Frankie Muniz is looking to try to get into racing. I think having a lot of different celebrities looking to get in racing, whether it's becoming a driver or because he does have a lot of racing experience. I mean, he's not someone who's new to the world of racing, but he's new to NASCAR racing or ARCA racing, if that makes any sense. I think it's really, really awesome, really, really amazing, and very exciting for sure to see that he is looking to get into the world of racing and getting back in racing and things. Really awesome and really exciting news for sure, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Danny Kvyat. As Danny Kvyat was basically spotted in testing for the Rain Brothers Racing Organization at Hickory Speedway in a late model. Now, Danny Kvyat, of course, is looking to come into NASCAR. He's been actually approved by NASCAR. We talked about this a couple weeks ago on the channel, that Danny Kvyat is open to make some NASCAR Cup Series starts later this year with the Team Haysbert organization. He's in the Team Haysbert's pit box. It's unclear how many races he wants to run, but he's looking to run a few races with a Team Haysbert organization. Danny Kvirik, of course, raced in Formula One for a couple years for teams like Toro Rosso and Red Bull and other organizations as well, now also known as AlphaTauri. He raced for those organizations and had some decent success, but never won a race in Formula One. That being said, though, it would be awesome to have Danny Kvirik come in. We're starting to see more of an open-wheel resurgence. We've got guys like Mark Andretti, who came from IndyCar, looking to get into NASCAR. We've got Joseph Newgarden, who's shown some interest very recently. And now you've got guys like Danny Kvirik and Kimi Räikkönen, who are looking to come in. My anticipation is that more than likely his debut is going to come at Watkins Glen for the 2017. I know they want to keep Larice in the car. Of course, Larice, who is the son of one of the team owners. I think it makes a lot of sense. They want to bring Danny Kvirik in, though. I think having that foreign representation for the sport is really, really awesome. I think it's amazing that he's looking to get into other forms of racing, including NASCAR, and excited to see that he's been testing out some late models. Hopefully, this will lead to some starts going forward in the future. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about high limit racing. It was announced on Wednesday that Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet are basically decided to create a new dirt racing series called High Limit Racing. The goal of this is to have midweek racing. It will be a 12-race series. It will have midweek racing, and we'll also be talking about purses as well, and trying to have much bigger purses is one of the big reasons, and also midweek racing. And it will be starting in 2023, most likely in the early portion of the summer months of 2023, but this series will be around. Kyle Larson has been making a lot of noise in the dirt world. We got a major story around him coming up here later in this episode that you should all definitely check out. But I think this is really cool that Kyle Larson has basically made this series. Him and Brad Sweet are legends of the dirt world. Yes, of course, Kyle Larson is already a Cup Series champion. Brad Sweet wasn't as successful in NASCAR, but Brad Sweet is one of the greatest drivers in the World of Outlaws history. He's won a lot of championships already in that series, and I think this is such a cool series that they are making. It's unclear what tracks they're going to. They were asked a lot of questions around high limit racing, why they made this series. I think this is such a cool series that they decided to make, though, and having a series like the High Limit Racing and having a new dirt series, hopefully it succeeds like ASOC. I hope it really succeeds. I think it will be amazing for the sports and dirt racing world if the series can succeed. But I think if Kyle Larson is managing and running it, he knows what's going on. And again, they're looking at the purse money. Purses have absolutely needed to be increased in dirt for a long time, and they're going to have much bigger purses for this as well, much bigger than some events, and I think it's good to see that Kyle Larson has made this, has contractually made this series. I think it's amazing, absolutely incredible, and great to see that there's a new series coming into the world of dirt. And now we're going to jump to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Daniel Ricciardo. Now, Daniel Ricciardo yesterday put out a statement in regards to his future with McLaren. And he basically says that he confirms that he will be with McLaren at least through the 2023 season. He says, I know there's been a lot of rumors around me of my future with the team, but he confirmed that he'll be with the team at least through 2023. However, he never specified if he'll be back in the Formula One car or will basically be with like Formula E or another organization, because according to what we've heard from multiple people, McLaren's contracts are kind of flexible and you can get moved around to other organizations. You can get moved to IndyCar, you can move to Formula E, or of course you can stay in Formula One, or you can get transferred from the other two series and come into Formula One. Now, Daniel Ricciardo obviously has not had a great year in the last few years. Outside of his win at Monza, that's the only thing he has really had advantage over Lando Norris this year. He has really struggled in Formula One since going to McLaren, which is really disappointing. I really did expect that he was going to really impress in the McLaren cars. However, he has absolutely struggled so far this year with McLaren, compared to his teammate Lando, who has scored basically quadruple the points that he scored. I mean, I think Daniel Ricciardo's only scored, like 12 or 13 points compared to Lando, who scored around 50 or 60 points this year. So Daniel Ricciardo definitely has to improve if he wants to generally stay long-term. I think he's a good driver. It's just that he's really, really struggled and definitely has to improve. That being said, though, I'm glad he's going to be back on McLaren. I think he deserves another year with the team, but he's got to start improving his performance. Otherwise, long-term, he could be kicked out the door, and it would be unfortunate, but obviously, it is what it is, and hopefully there's no more issues going forward on that, but it's likely that next year could be his last year with McLaren. Will it be with another team? That is to be determined in the long term. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Emerling Gase Motorsports. As Emerling Gase Motorsports announced yesterday that they will be running 2 full-time cars in 2023. They both will be Fords. They will have 35 and 53 as the numbers. One of them is going to be a full-time entry, and the second one is going to be one split car between Shane Lee, Joey Gase, and other drivers. We're looking to get someone to run that car full-time. Now, it's unclear what driver could go to full-time, but if they're going to have someone drive full-time for their organization, they need to bring someone in that is very, very talented. So why not a guy like Parker Kligerman? I know that Parker's looking to run full-time in trucks, but Parker Kligerman would be an interesting driver to bring, considering he got you guys a top 10 on a road course in the 35 car. Why not bring him in? I will say this about Emerling Gase Motorsports. Emerling Gase Motorsports has had some decent runs this year, especially when guys like Patrick Emerling have gotten behind a wheel and Shane Lee have gotten behind a wheel. They've actually done really, really decent. It's just that their qualifying pace and speed hasn't been great. But I believe they've got one of their cars in the top 30 in points, bonus points, which actually really isn't that bad, all things considered, because the Xfinity Series field is extremely competitive. They have been slightly improving overall, and I think going into next year, they're only going to improve more. They'll probably be looking at more factory support from teams like Stewart-Haas Racing. I think they're going to be a 4-team next year. So I think this is such a cool thing. They're looking to expand to 2 full-time cars. Obviously, going into next year, they need to build on what they started this year and look to try to get as many top 20 finishes and top 30 finishes as possible. That should be the goal going next year. I know those goals are really, really low, but I think that's what they should be looking at, is looking at like small goals and not trying to jump the gun and jump up and do a lot of crazy things. So I think it's great to see that they are looking to expand going into next year. I think it's really exciting for sure, and I'm glad to see Emerling Gase Motorsports has made a decision to overall expand, and good luck to him heading into the 2023 season. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about Corey LaJoie. Now, Corey LaJoie basically was on the Sack and Pennies podcast and basically really gave an interesting explanation on what happened on the last lap at Atlanta. So in the last couple laps, he was up front competing for the overall victory against Chase Elliott, who had the best car at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and explain what happened on the last lap. His explanation is he got a massive run and was actually going to go to the bottom to try to pass Chase Elliott. However, Erik Jones, who was pushing Corey LaJoie at the time, he explained that Erik Jones gave him such a massive push that he really had no choice but to go up to the outside and try to pass him. And that's when Chase Elliott put the block on Corey LaJoie. Now, was Corey LaJoie overall the most happy? No, but he said it was a clean block. He said that at the race, that it was overall a clean block, and Chase Elliott won the race fair and square. Looking at the situation around it when it comes to Corey LaJoie, I think, look, I know a lot of people are going to say that is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. I know sometimes it gets overused, but I think when it comes to these super speedway races and things, I look at these super speedway races and think, this is how it's been for the last couple of years. Do I love the drivers get put into the wall for the win? No, I absolutely don't like it. I don't like how that kind of racing is. But at the same token, at the same time, it's been like this for a while. And I will say that this block that Chase Elliott put on Corey LaJoie is not as egregious as the block that Kyle Larson put on Chase Elliott Auto Club, though that one was with 20 laps to go, because Chase Elliott was really like about half a car length in front of there, and Larson put him into the wall. And I will say the one that was more egregious and no one really talks about is Austin Cindric when he put a block on his teammate Ryan Blaney. I don't think this one was more egregious, but if Elliott doesn't put that block on LaJoie does not run into the outside wall. So that's something that is also very, very important to note. That being said, though, I think LaJoie has been much of a good sport. He's not going to really do anything stupid. And I will say this. I think Corey LaJoie is going to be a threat to win at Daytona. If that 17's got the pace that they had at Atlanta, they're going to be a team that I think's got a good shot to win Daytona. Now, of course, Corey LaJoie, if he wants to make the playoffs, he has to be top 30 points. I believe he's around 40 or 50 points outside the top 30 currently at the moment. But he had a really strong day this past weekend, and hopefully that can lead to a really strong run here down the road in the future. Good luck to him, and it's a shame that he didn't get the win, but it is what it is, and hopefully maybe he can be a contender to win going forward. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about more updates on the Alex Palou situation. Now, we talked about Alex Palou, and it was initially announced that he was going to be returning to Chip Ganassi Racing, and then Alex Palou basically came out a few hours later saying, no, I did not approve of this, and these quotes did not come from me. Well, Chip Ganassi Racing, about an hour after the announcement, Jay Query put out basically a statement from Chip Ganassi Racing officials saying that, no, we are going to be retaining him heading into 2023. This has gotten really, really ugly very, very fast. It's been one of the more interesting IndyCar stories in a very, very long time. Now, it basically was announced that Alex Palou was going to be heading to McLaren for 2023. But if you notice in the tags Alex Palou has, it says McLaren F1 and not Aero McLaren SP. Now, there is a chance, of course, he could be driving one of the Aero McLaren SP cars heading into the 2023 season. However, I think that he has more ambitions to go to Formula One and take that seat from Daniel Ricciardo. And why? Well, the McLaren seat is a very solid seat. It's not amazing, but it's a very solid seat. And Alex Palou actually has 40 super license points after winning the IndyCar Championship last year and being a very successful driver in IndyCar with Chip Ganassi Racing. He wanted to go over to Formula One. The only reason he's leaving Chip Ganassi Racing generally to begin with is because he wants to go race in Formula One. He wants to go and race in F1. That's why he decided to make this announcement and wants to go over there and race next year. Now, of course, he can get moved around and be a test driver next year. He may not be racing IndyCar in general. But this also has led to some major questions in regards to his general future. Is he going to continue racing for Chip Ganassi Racing the rest of the year? Well, as of right now, yes. He was spotted getting on the plane with Chip Ganassi Racing, plane with Chip on board. Now, long term, he may not be finishing the season with the team. There have been a lot of rumors around he was not going to finish the season. However, I do anticipate he at least will return to the team and finish for the rest of the year. But there's a chance he might not be racing in 2023 in IndyCar in general. This could get very, very messy, very, very dicey, very, very quickly, and very, very fast around Alex Palou. And again, he would not leave Chip Ganassi Racing if it didn't mean a Formula One ride. Everyone's looking for that second McLaren ride. You've got Colin Hurd, who's been testing for McLaren, looking at going to that ride. You've got Pat O'Ward, who probably wants to go to that ride eventually. You've got Formula One guys like Valtteri Bottas and Alex Albon, who are looking to go to that ride. Oscar Piastri is another driver that's been considered for the ride. There's a lot of drivers being considered for that second McLaren ride, and I think right now it is generally the most coveted ride to get into currently at the moment heading into 2024, or even 2023 for that matter. I think this move was made to try to basically convince people that, yeah, I'm definitely ready to make that move over. I think this is such a crazy story that we watched long term. He will probably finish the season now. Could he let go early before the end of the year? It's maybe possible, but I think that Chip is at least going to let him finish the year with the team and finish what he started and try to get him a championship at least through the 2022 season, but he may not be with any IndyCar teams heading into 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about Ross Chastain. Now, Ross Chastain has been in the news a lot over the last couple weeks due to his over-aggression. And Justin Marks was on Sirius NASCAR Radio to basically discuss about Ross Chastain's over-aggression. And Justin Marks basically said in the clip, he says that he hopes Ross understands the big picture and have to be prepared for the damage already done. He was not as defensive of Ross Chastain as he's been. And I think basically what Justin Marks is trying to say is that Ross, well, he can absolutely be aggressive. He needs to start calming that aggression down just a little bit, which I absolutely agree with that. I think that he needs to slightly calm that aggression down just a little bit. Because Ross Chastain, let's talk about what happened at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Ross Chastain made some pretty big mistakes at Atlanta. Now, I will not give him full responsibility and blame for what happened at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the first incident with him and Martin Truex Jr. He gave a little bit of push to Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. was a little swiggly. However, if I was in the position of Ross Chastain, I would have backed off just a little bit, but he kind of kept pushing. But that one, I'm not going to put full blame on him there. The second incident at Atlanta Motor Speedway that he caused, the one with Denny Hamlin, that caused Hamlin to spin out, and he already had problems with Denny Hamlin, that incident, I'm going to put full blame on Chastain. He washed up the racetrack, knew he shouldn't have been going up there. He just overdrove, was way over in his head, and got into Denny Hamlin. And Denny Hamlin has already vowed revenge. And Ross Chastain is making a lot of enemies this year. There's at least 10 drivers, at least, and there's probably more drivers in the garage that are not big fans of Ross Chastain. Jeff Burns said on the broadcast, he said that they are not going to let him win the championship. He won't win the championship the way he continues racing. He's not going to win the championship, which I entirely agree. If Ross Chastain continues to race like this, he's not going to win the championship. Of course, he could pull Joey Logano in 2018, but there's a lot of drivers unhappy with him. We've got guys, Chase Elliott was not happy with Ross Chastain's move. Martin Truex Jr. went on Sirius and basically said that Ross is driving way in over his head and needs to calm that down. And Truex is not happy with him, but I don't expect something from him. Denny Hamlin's probably going to turn Chastain or dump him at some point when the time is right. If he continues making these kind of mistakes and moves, it's going to cost him long term. And I don't blame him if drivers retaliate. Look, I'm a big fan of Ross Chastain and his aggression. And he's raced like this really since the beginning of his career. So that's not my problem with what Ross Chastain is doing. But he could get away with the stuff back then. It's kind of getting ridiculous. He's been in the news so much. Drivers are getting frustrated with it, and I think at some point retaliation could be coming for Ross Chastain. If he doesn't calm this aggression down that he's been doing, he's going to have more problems in the playoffs. And I think that he might need to continue what he's doing this year, but he needs to at least tone it down. He doesn't need to stop being aggressive. That's one thing we need to all address here, is I don't want to see him completely tone the aggression down. But I want to see him, not completely, but a little bit down and stop running into drivers. There's a difference between a little bit being a little aggressive and being a little over-aggressive. I think there's a massive, massive difference right there, and we'll see what happens long term. But he may 100% have already potentially cost himself a championship, and he's probably not going to win the championship if he doesn't stop, which I agree with Jeff Burton on that one, and there's a chance that he may not win the championship now at this point. And now we're going to jump on to the next major story of today's episode, as we are talking about Kyle Larson once again. Now, this story is not as positive as the other stories around Kyle Larson, as Kyle Larson, I believe, was being interviewed when the high limit racing stuff was being announced, and Kyle Larson felt that he may not be competing in the 2023 Chili Bowl Nationals. Now, this came as a shock to a ton of people in the industry as well, that Kyle Larson may not compete in the Chili Bowl Nationals, considering Kyle Larson has won 2 or 3 Chili Bowl Nationals up to this point. It has been extremely competitive. He's been racing there for 14 years. He's been very successful. So a lot of people are wondering why Kyle Larson is considering not racing at Chili Bowl Nationals. The number one reason is the purse money. I read Matt Weaver's article around the situation, who works for Auto Week, who wrote a really, really good article on this. And Kyle Larson says that the purse money is a big reason why. The purse money that they're getting at this race, they're bringing in a ton of money. They're only making $10,000. The winner of the race only gets $10,000. Now, it's always been $10,000 for a very, very long time. However, Kyle Larson over the last few months has been a big proponent of major purse money. And he's not the only one that is maybe considering not racing in the Chili Bowl. You've got guys like Chris Urbella maybe considering it. You've got Brad Sweet who's reconsidering racing in the event. And I think a lot of it is due to the purse money. Let's be honest. $10,000 is not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money for these drivers, and it's costing more. And not to mention, Kyle Larson won more in the Brad Doty Classic World of Outlaws race. He won, I think, 50 or 60 grand in the Prairie Dirt Classic last year. Last year in the Knoxville Nationals, I think, won 150 grand. And also with the King's World, won $150,000 as well. He's winning a lot more money at these events. And look, I know the Chili Bowl National is a great event. Now, Emmett Hahn basically responded to Kyle Larson's, what Kyle Larson said, and said that, oh, I basically can't pay more. I call BS on that. I understand Emmett Hahn doesn't want to pay out more, but he's raking in tens of millions of dollars for the Chili Bowl Nationals. If you want this event to stay long-term and the prestige to stay long-term, you absolutely have to increase the purse money. I think 50 grand, 25, 30 grand at least. I think drivers will stay and race. But you're going to have a lot of drivers who are not going to race. And again, why is this so important? It's like, well, people are going to tune in, right? You're going to get less viewers of guys like Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson aren't racing. They're two of the big dirt drivers who have a lot of popularity in the dirt racing world. If you don't have a guy like Kyle Larson racing in the Chili Bowl Nationals, that should definitely be a wake-up call to Emmett Hahn and the organizers of the event. Now, Kyle Larson's not bad at Emmett Hahn. Of course, basically Emmett Hahn's thinking it's a coup because he's saying that they're a protesting event. You know, it wouldn't be doing this if you start paying a little more money to guys like Kyle Larson who are bringing in the fans for you. Kyle Larson has hundreds of thousands of fans, not just in the NASCAR, that millions of NASCAR fans there. He's got hundreds of thousands of dirt fans as well. He's like the most popular dirt guy out there. Anytime he wins a dirt race, he gets cheered absolutely heavily. And I think that Emmett Hahn, these guys in the higher ups at these teams need to start listening to what guys like Kyle Larson are saying. Increase the purse money, especially with inflation, how the economy is currently going, with how bad the economy is right now. I think Emmett Hahn would at least for this year, increase the purse money. I don't think another 5, 10K is enough. I think got to increase it to 25 to 30,000. They got to increase the purse money. I get where Emmett Hahn's somewhat coming from, but same token and same time, they got to increase the purse money. That's why Kyle Larson is probably not going to compete in the Chili Bowl next year, which is a shame because he's competed in the Chili Bowl every year since 2008. And I know he wants to compete in it, but he wants to see the purse money making. I mean, Brad Sweet said it in the article. He's losing $5,000. So what's the point of continuing racing in the Chili Bowl if he's not going to make money? This is a story we're going to be watching long term to see if he will officially enter, but there's a good chance he may not enter in the 2023 Chili Bowl Nationals. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Aric Almirola. Now, remember at the beginning of the year when we talked about that Aric Almirola said that he was going to that he was announcing after this season that he was going to retire. Well, there apparently is some talk and conversation behind the scenes about him maybe returning next year in 2023. According to an article from Steven Trano, who works for CNBC, basically works for CBS, he said in that article, Aric Almirola says, I don't think so when it comes to you ask about maybe reconsider retirement. He says, I don't think so, but again, I've learned to never say never. There would have to be a lot of conversations for that to happen. Now, apparently, according to reports, we talked about this multiple times on the channel, Aric Almirola has had some talks and considerations about reconsidering retirement. Now, a big reason is because Aric Almirola has had a very, very successful 2022 season. Despite being outside of the playoffs currently when it comes to the playoff grid, he has actually been having a really, really strong year, sitting a much better year this year. I mean, it's not been an amazing year. It's not like 2018 standards, but it's like 2019. He's gotten back to his 2019 standards, and he's been very solid this year generally. He sits in the top 15 points currently, has scored a lot of stage points this year, has had some really decent runs, and this week in New Hampshire could be a really strong opportunity for Aric Almirola to go out there and contend for a championship. Now, there again, I don't know how highly likely he will return next year. I think it's about 50-50 right now. There's a good chance he can return. And what is another reason I think that there could be a potential of him returning next year? One of the big reasons is when it comes to sponsorship. Smithfield has been sponsored Aric Almirola now since around 2012 when he joined Richard Petty Motorsports. And Smithfield has had a long-term commitment with Aric Almirola. They've been sponsoring with that team and also with Stewart-Haas Racing. And I think that Smithfield could be threatening right now to be wanting to leave if Aric Almirola does not decide to stay. If he decides to leave, they may leave. And that's going to affect the other drivers coming in that could be going there. Guys like John Henry and Ryan Preece having two of the rumored drivers who could get into the 10 car in 2023. However, one thing that they lack that Aric Almirola doesn't lack is the sponsorship. They don't have the Smithfield funding. Yes, Ryan Preece does, of course, have the funding from companies like Hunt Brothers Pizza and, of course, Morton Buildings, but those are KHI-managed sponsors, and he's probably going to want to bring other, and also United Rentals. I think that's his own sponsor. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think he has a lot of sponsorship and the funding to stay like a guy like Aric Almirola does. Now, of course, Smithfield has dropped some of their funding, but they probably would increase their funding just a little bit if Aric Almirola decided to stay at least for 1 more year. Now, do I think Aric Almirola more than likely returns in 2023? That is to be determined. There's a good chance that that could absolutely happen, but there's also a really strong chance and a real possibility that Aric Almirola decides to go ahead and retire. If he decides to retire, I don't think it's a bad decision overall, in all honesty. I think Aric's a good driver. He knows what he's doing, and if he decides to retire, it is what it is, but I think there's a good chance he could return, but there's also a good chance he does retire at the end of the season. This is one thing we're going to be watching long term, but there's a chance that Aric Almirola could retire at the end, could return at the end of the 2023, start of 2023. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we are talking about Tyler Reddick. Now, we've talked about Tyler Reddick already on this channel. Tyler Reddick made a major and shocking announcement where it was announced that he would be going to 2311 Racing starting in 2024. He will be returning to Childress Racing in 2023. Now, Childress Racing and that team were not very happy with Tyler Reddick. They released a statement basically saying that we are continuing to give Tyler Reddick the best we can in 2022 or 2023, but the timing could not be any worse. Now, why could this be? Well, of course, they announced an extension on his option for 2023 just a week ago, and of course, he won at Road America only about a week or two ago, so that's probably a good reason why they're kind of upset about this. But, however, that's not the only thing. An executive from Childress Racing basically said that they are shocked by Tyler Reddick's statement and Tyler Reddick's news. However, Tyler Reddick basically, before this came out, Tyler Reddick basically said that it should not be a shock that he decided to go ahead and leave Childress Racing. And the reason he said this is because Tyler Reddick said to the team weeks ago that he said he'd be looking to go to different teams heading into 2024. Now, let's get into the major announcement I already talked about. Of course, Tyler Reddick is going to be leaving Childress Racing at the conclusion of the 2023 season to go to 2311 Racing heading into 2024. Now, this move that Tyler Reddick was making heading into 2024 was being made for 2023. I thought this would be a bad decision because I don't think 2311 Racing, at least as of right now, is a great organization. What Tyler Reddick is generally banking on right now is basically the fact that he is a driver that's good, and also the fact that he's banking on that they are going to improve as an organization. And I think that they are going to improve by the time Reddick gets over to that team. They got to work on getting the pit crew better, and the drivers have to perform better. However, I will say this about 2311 Racing and Toyota. Toyota, they struggled at the beginning of the year, but over the last 2 weeks, they've been generally really improving not only their performance, but their pit stops and their speeds as well. We've seen Bubba Wallace get 10 for top 10s, so the pickers are making mistakes, and Kurt Busch, of course, got his first win at Kansas about 2 months ago. Now, obviously, of course, like I said, this move is being made for 2024, and I anticipate the team being better. The one thing to watch for when it comes to Childress Racing is Childress Racing going to be salty, or are they going to give him for good performances? Now, I expect in 2022, they're going to give Tyler Reddick the best win they can. I think Tyler Reddick is a great driver, and they're going to try to get him a championship, considering Austin Dillon, the only way he's probably going to make the playoffs at this point is by winning a race at a track like Daytona, because he hasn't had the consistent pace and the consistent speed to go out there and win. So they're going to give Tyler Reddick the best equipment they can to really help Tyler Reddick try to go out there and win the championship. However, there is a chance that they could next year not give him as good equipment. They could sabotage him. However, I think they're going to try to give him the best equipment they can heading into 2023, especially when it comes to potentially looking at sponsors. Now, Childress Racing also needs to figure out what they need to do to stop having their good drivers leave. This is not the first time that we've seen a major move like this happen in the Childress Racing camp. Back in 2012, Kevin Harvick announced he'd be leaving Childress Racing to go to Stewart-Haas Racing for 2014, and announced that I believe in April or May of 2012. Also, we've seen it with Casey Kane with Hendrick Motorsports, announced in April 2010 they'd be leaving Richard Petty Motorsports to go to Hendrick Motorsports heading into the 2012 season. Also, now we got the situation where Kevin Harvick's leaving, and I think it's because of his grandson. Now, I don't think, unlike Kevin Harvick, I don't think that Tyler Reddick is feeling this way. If you're Childress Racing, you need to figure out what you're going to do. Here's the issue with Childress Racing compared to 2311 Racing. I think 2311 Racing generally right now has a much higher ceiling than RCR. I mean, that's no disrespect to Childress Racing, but they're not the team they used to be 10 or even 15 years ago, and they're not a team that's a championship caliber threat. Going to Toyota, Tyler Reddick is an extremely talented driver, so that's why he's looking to go over to 2311 Racing and go over there and race for that organization. Again, I 100% understand them being frustrated. They lost someone they were building their organization around. Childress has basically said that they're trying to build around Tyler Reddick and build around him for the long-term future. However, the reason they probably have gone ahead and decided to make the decision and basically said, you know what, Ryan Reddick's leaving, they're probably not happy about the decision. But now they got to think about the long-term future, what drivers could get into it. Now, what drivers could get into it? Obviously, they've got drivers in the Xfinity Series program. Guys like Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed could be good considerations. However, Sheldon Creed has really struggled in the Xfinity Series. And also, Austin Hill, while I think he's been good, he needs to improve in some areas. You've got guys like Parker Kligerman, perhaps. I know Parker Kligerman was actually supposed to go to Childress Racing for the 2022 season for the Xfinity. However, that deal got dropped, and that's where Austin Hill ended up going. I think it's been a good decision to at least give Hill in there, but I feel for Parker Kligerman. But Kligerman, I think, would be a great option for the 8. You've got Ty Dillon, Eric Jones, Corey LaJoie, other drivers who could end up getting into the ride long term. Overall, in my opinion, this definitely is a story to watch to see generally what happens in regards to this, but I do honestly believe that I understand Childress Racing being frustrated and lost Tyler Reddick, but they shouldn't be totally shocked. Reddick has said multiple times, basically said that he's really looking at moving around, and I think Reddick knows he's got more talent than what the equipment has right now. That's no disrespect to RCR. They're a B-plus team. They're an A-plus team. They're a B-plus team, and I think while right now 2311 is a B-minus team, I think they're a team that can become an A-plus team long-term and become a championship threat, and I think Tyler Reddick could be a really good help to help that out. So, anyway, that is here today's NASCAR and Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on my page as well. List schedule below with that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Are you surprised at Childress Racing being shocked by Tyler Reddick's announcement? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Kyle Larson not competing in the 2023 Chili Bowl Nationals? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race view from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And I might have the SRX race view from I-55. So I might have 2 videos tomorrow on the channel. And then, of course, on Saturday, Sunday, we'll have the NASCAR Cup Series race view from the fan-famed New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And then we've got other content on the way over the next couple weeks to talk about. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.